Hello, this is Georgie Oldfield, physiotherapist and founder of SERPA, where our aim is to help people recover from rather than just manage their chronic pain. And in this video, I want to specifically talk about fibromyalgia, which is actually one of the chronic pain conditions where following the SERPA approach has actually resulted in the most life-changing results for many patients who have been suffering from this debilitating condition. Now, interestingly, there's some debate about the cause of fibromyalgia, with some people believing it has a biological cause, other people a neurobiological cause, and with others believing that it's actually a psychosomatic condition. Although there's evidence of functional and structural changes in the brains of people who have fibromyalgia, this is actually evident in anybody who has chronic pain as well. And interestingly, studies into mindfulness meditation show that actually following mindfulness meditation for a few weeks can also result in changes both functionally and structurally within the brain tissue. So this fits in with the research that shows that our brains are neuroplastic. In other words, they're not static organs. They actually change and respond depending on our behaviours and our environment. It's not surprising that there's a lot of resistance, both among the medical world and people who suffer from fibromyalgia, at the thought that maybe fibromyalgia doesn't have a physical cause. And unfortunately, the term psychosomatic doesn't help either, because the general understanding about that is that the pain must be all in the head. The concept on which the SERPA approach is based is that very real and often debilitating symptoms are produced by the brain and the central nervous system as a result of unresolved emotional issues due to past or current stresses. In fact, pain is triggered unconsciously and automatically as part of a stress processing response, using the same processes that any emotion creates physical changes in the body, such as blushing when we're embarrassed or sexual arousal. In fact, it's like a modified fight and flight response, which is an automatic reaction caused by the unconscious primal part of the brain as a result of a perceived threat. In primal times, the threats we faced tended to be life-threatening, and the instantaneous reactions often saved lives because the neurophysiological changes that occurred due to that initial fear allowed the individual to fight or flee. And out of interest at this point, it's worth noting that that response, the fight and flight response, allowed the individual to dissipate the emotional energy or turmoil that had built up. Unfortunately, in the Western world, our stresses are more psychological, and also we have a tendency to bottle up how we feel. The threat or stress could be something happening to us or around us, but how we respond to whatever's happening can hugely exacerbate the stress that we perceive. Our brain will react anyway because it's trying to protect us from the threat. And this threat could literally just be that you have a headache because you're feeling completely overwhelmed. Maybe due to your fears and anxieties about performing well at work or playing in an orchestra, might result in you having hand pain. But often the trigger might be something completely innocuous, but it might actually, for your internal emotional pressure cooker, might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Often people with fibromyalgia are emotionally strong and they're copers, having learned this in childhood because it helped them deal better with whatever was going on in their life. And there's actually already been a strong link demonstrated through research between people who have fibromyalgia and childhood trauma. So generally, people with fibromyalgia have a tendency to be very conscientious, to be self-critical, to put other people first. They might have perfectionistic tendencies and like to be in control. So as a generalisation, their tendency is often to get on with things and ignore how they feel, which might be fine for a while, and they continue to cope. Emotional memories are stored in the unconscious emotional brain. And as our internal emotional pressure cooker builds up, an outlet will sooner or later be required. The mind and body work in synchronicity, and the body will always be giving us signals as to what might be going on emotionally. But unfortunately, this isn't actually well recognised. This means that mild symptoms, such as an aching muscle or fatigue or a headache, are often ignored But in the long run, the brain could cause complete shutdown, which is actually protecting you from falling apart emotionally. So if you're a coper, then to appear emotionally weak is actually a real threat to your self-image. So these symptoms are actually there to protect you, to actually keep you going. Unfortunately, when the underlying cause has not been identified, then fears and worries about the condition, what the diagnosis is, about what you can or can't do in your life, can exacerbate the situation and reinforce the pain cycle until it becomes a conditioned response. And unfortunately, with the fact that most people believe that fibromyalgia can only be managed and not cured, it actually just exacerbates the whole problem. The exciting thing is that once you recognise that your condition might be stress-induced and created by your brain and the central nervous system, then recovery is possible because this process is reversible. So the first step would be to find out more about it. Read some of the recovery stories on the SERPA website, listen to the SERPA Recovery CD, and just get more of an understanding about this whole concept and the approach.